Okay, we're starting to record.
Okay, I'll call this meeting of the Policy Committee of the Bethel Public Library to order at 6:32.
Okay, let me pull up the. Hold on. Okay, this.
Okay. So Tia, remind me, because we don't have, everyone who's here was not at that meeting. Are we approving the,
I think the terminology is we accept them.
okay,
We can't approve them since nobody was here. So I think we just accept them as written.
okay. Judy was there.
I was there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judy, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't remember the meeting at all.
So, well, in any event, Judy, do you want to move to accept the minutes?
Yes, I move to accept the minutes.
And anybody want to second that?
You
I
can't.
second it.
Well,
We can't second it?
No, but you can't because you're excluded, right? We
I'm
can't,
excluded.
Judy's the only person who can
But-
vote on them.
But
And I
Tia, you
appro-
said we can't approve them, but we can
Can
accept them.
Yeah,
So can't he second the accepting of the minutes?
I think
Yes,
that's what we're voting on.
I'm sorry, forgive me, I'm sorry. I thought you said approve.
Okay, so she just moves to accept the minutes and then Chris, so seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, I remember now. That was the hotspots. Yes, okay, yes.
So did everybody get a chance to review the bylaws that we're going to go over tonight?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes. Yes.
Megan's changes are in red. And
Well- Robin, you're the only one who has mine because bylaws I shouldn't be editing.
okay,
Only the board should be editing bylaws.
Okay,
okay,
I don't have any red at all. I just
okay,
have regular.
okay. So everybody's got the basic version of the bylaws or the existing version. So yeah, I guess the most efficient way to do this is to just go through and see if anybody had comments, and then I'll bring up some points that we should focus on.
And Robin, throughout the meeting, if there are points that need to be researched or that you or the committee has questions on, then I'll write that down and get that information for you.
Okay, my first thought was we ought to just double check to make sure that the reference to the sections of the charter are accurate in the very beginning, because over time charter sections change. So we've got C7-1 and C7-13.
Okay, so check section codes. Okay,
Anybody have anything on the first page besides that? Okay. On the second page,
Could you scroll down? I'm sorry, on the first page, I only see up to reappointment of members. I don't know if that's the end of it.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we had that.
Scrolling.
So the honorary status was the next thing that I was going to talk about. I've looked at everything with new eyes, I'm not necessarily, I don't necessarily feel strongly about some of these points, but I just wanted to bring it up. So the honorary status says that we can nominate someone to a former board member to that position. They don't have voting privileges, but I wonder if we should consider whether they should be excluded from executive sessions, whether we should specifically say that.
That's a good point. I think they should.
And anyone can attend a meeting, so we don't have to say that they have the right to attend a meeting, but I think we wouldn't want them in our executive sessions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then going down to Article 2, Section 1, this is a really gigantic one, Megan. I think bylaws should be capitalized. Where it's in the third line where it says these bylaws,
Okay.
do that elsewhere.
So section 1. Article. So I'm just going to write these down and fix them later. So
Yeah.
section 2, article 1. Third line. Cap. Bylaws. Okay.
Can you scroll down a little bit more?
Mhm.
Okay, so in section 4, we have a limitation, a limitation on the consecutive terms that someone can serve as an officer. And so the question is, should we consider making that 2 consecutive terms instead of 3? And I welcome anybody's thoughts on that.
I think we have to change it to 2 because in the last, when we approved 3, it was under the stipulation that the next review of the bylaws, it would go back to 2.
Oh, okay, all right.
Hey, Can I chime in for a minute? Hi, everybody. I
All right, Mary.
apologize for being late. I had trouble connecting. I think that 2 makes a lot more sense. I think 3 is just too long, and I think we changed it to have the year we really needed Tia to be able to stay on to make it, to help Megan,
The transition,
the transition, yes.
okay.
So I think 2 makes sense there.
Okay. And then my next comment was in section 6, unless anybody has anything before that. I thought the section about expired officer terms was confusing because we say that this deals with the situation where someone is the chair and vice chair, but they're not reappointed to the board. What happens? And so the board elects an interim chairman until a permanent chair is elected, and then talks about a special meeting being called as quickly as possible to elect an interim chair. But then it says the interim chair serves from the first Monday in January until the annual election of officers. So chronologically, that can't work because we won't know, will we, that
Right.
they haven't been appointed until after January, potentially. And we have to have a special meeting to appoint them, so they can't start serving before they've been appointed. If I'm not sure I'm saying that clearly, but I'd see how their term can start the first Monday in January, sort of retroactively, if we're not going to have them elected at a special meeting until after we find out they haven't been reappointed.
So Robin, perhaps we should go back and look at section 2, the nomination procedure,
Right, and
because it kind of all goes together.
right, and really 2 says that that we do that in January.
Correct.
And so are we going through the nominating process again? That was my other question, to decide who's going to be the interim chair. We just as a special meeting of the board shall be called to elect an interim chair, but we won't have gone through the process of having a nominating committee with potential candidates named and put forward. This whole section didn't really hold together for me.
It's not smooth at all.
So do you have a recommendation, Robin, for how to fix that?
Well, the term shouldn't really be until they're elected, at least for starters. I don't think we should refer to it being the first Monday in January. And then the other part of the question that I had was, it says they serve until the annual election of officers as provided in 2 and 3 above. So does that mean that the interim chair serves for a year?
Well, no, aren't they? They're not appointed or elected until the end of January. So wouldn't they only be interim until the end of January? Then their term would actually start.
Well, they serve as interim. Well, so the annual election, isn't the annual election in January?
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
January meeting.
So what are they going to serve for, like 5 minutes, or I guess?
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because the thing is that the selectmen don't meet until, well, usually they appoint people or reappoint people in their first meeting in the new year. But that doesn't always happen automatically at the first meeting because they may have other things that they're doing. So it may not actually be until later in the month. I know I'm muddying the waters, but
That's what I was thinking. I don't think that they're necessarily going to have been, we won't know whether people have been reappointed, and we don't know if this process has to start until after the first Monday in January.
I'm looking
Right.
at the town charter now to see if it's in their charter when they have to appoint by. Charter.
Doesn't it have to be done within 45 days?
Appointment by Board of Selectmen. Let's see. I should have put class. The term of office. So it says the term of office on all appointed boards and commissions shall commence on the first Monday of January unless otherwise required by law or provided in this charter. So it doesn't, oh, hold on, there's more. It doesn't give a date. It just says it starts the first Monday in January, their appointment.
Mhm. So maybe that's why this is written this way, to coincide with that. But we still have to have elected them and gone through that process.
But if you go back to section 2, about halfway down, it said to be filled at the regular January meeting or at the first regular meeting following the annual appointment of new members.
Mhm.
So because our terms expire at the end of the year,
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know, what if we rewrote the whole thing and changed our election of officers to be at our February meeting? Can that be done?
well, you would then have you.
Wouldn't that contradict the charter then?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it would contradict the charter. I mean, well, not necessarily, because the charter is just saying when the board members serve. The charter doesn't deal with officers, does it?
Yeah, I think you're right, but
But if you're an officer that's not been renewed or
Mhm.
going to be renewed, you know what I mean?
That's where the problem is.
So you're not renewed. We've got to get an interim chair elected right away by special meeting.
wouldn't the easiest thing just to be to have the treasurer become the chair?
Yes.
Maybe the treasurer won't get reappointed.
So you mean the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer don't get reappointed?
Yeah.
So we move on to the secretary.
Well, so what would you say? Something like remaining officers will assume the duties until the
We
you
have a
know,
special
yeah.
meeting.
special meeting? I mean, that does kind of make sense. It would be very, I would think it would be highly unusual that all 4 people would not be,
And it would only be 3 weeks.
yeah. Chris, what do you think? Judy?
Right. Remember the mix up we had about how many years people had,
Served? Yeah,
whether it was 4 or 3, or because they had, the Board of Selectmen had a different number than we had.
yeah, we just, what we just wound up doing was going with whatever whatever the number was that they had indicated, that was what we accepted.
Right. Right. But also you have to go and be sworn in by Lisa Berg, right?
Yes,
Okay. And you have to write a letter to the board asking to be reappointed if you're being reappointed, or if you don't wish to be reappointed.
Well, should we all try to maybe, what's our timing? Do we have time to work on this beyond tonight's meeting? You know, like, do we really have to draft it tonight?
Well, we already set a date for the next meeting. So no, we don't have to draft the whole thing tonight. We just need to have it done by the next meeting. And
Okay,
I believe, let me see when our next one is. I think I scheduled it for 2 weeks from tonight.
yeah. So maybe people can take a stab at this, just sort of try to come up with some ideas how to make it work in conjunction with 2 and 3.
Would you like me to look and see what other towns' libraries bylaws are?
That would be great.
That section? Okay.
Yeah. I may be overthinking it too. I don't know. It just didn't, when I read it, it didn't make sense to me, but maybe it works with everything else. And I just overthought it. Okay, the next thing I have is in section 7. It says the chairman appoints a replacement and the appointment shall become effective upon a majority vote of the entire board. So really, is the majority vote of the board ratifying the chairman's appointment? Or is the chairman nominating a replacement and then we're voting on the replacement? It seems like that we're ratifying that the chair says who is going to serve in that position, and then what the board is voting on is to approve what the chairman has suggested, with the person the chairman suggested.
you know, and now that I'm reading this more in depth, if you look at section 7 and how it relates to section 6. Can you scroll up just a little bit for section 6?
Yeah.
Oh,
how's that?
perfect. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, I'm assuming that what would happen is the chair would appoint a replacement. Then there would be a vote by the board membership. If you don't get a majority, and my assumption on this one was that just like when we have our slate of candidates on the actual day when we're voting, we will honor floor nominations. I'm assuming that would also happen here. Should that vote not be a majority vote? Because there's nothing here that says what happens if it's not a majority. Isn't that what your point is, Robin? It's like,
My point is just that it has the chairman appointing the replacement,
right,
and the appointment's effective upon a majority vote. So if the person's already been appointed by the chair, isn't really the board just ratifying that appointment rather than?
well, yeah, and what happens if you don't get a majority vote?
Well, I think then the chairman would have to find somebody else.
Yeah,
because it's not effective unless they have the majority. I don't know that you have to say that, but that's, I'm assuming what would happen.
So do we want this language cleaned up then?
Maybe just, I think if you just add the word ratification somewhere in here, that the second piece of this after the chair appoints somebody is that that vote is, that appointment is approved or ratified.
It's hard. I can't see what you guys see, so I have to go back and forth between computers. So you mean section 7, if the office of the chairman becomes vacant, the vice chair, no, wait. The chairman shall appoint a replacement and such appointment shall become, so instead of effective, become ratified?
I would say become effective upon ratifying vote or
So ratified vote instead of majority?
no, it has to be majority. Let me think of some wording.
All
and
right,
I'll
yes,
get
if you could send me some language on that,
Yeah.
that would be great.
I'm just saying that, it's sort of an affirmative thing that the chairman does, and then it has to be, that action has to be approved by the rest of us. It's not us just going to vote. But it is similar to the nominating arrangement where the nominating committee places the names in, and then we vote on it.
yeah, I just don't know if there needs to be that provision of taking, not to
What if?
take, yeah, what if, so, nominations from the floor. Maybe when you're looking for those other ones, Megan, maybe they have good language for this too.
Yeah,
So I should really look up Article 2 and just look for something that covers the range of
Yeah.
sections.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay,
next thing I have is in section 9. This is also not earth shattering, but it says that the chairman shall perform all duties of the chief executive officer, and it's capitalized. Isn't it really a chief executive officer? I mean, we don't,
okay, just a executive officer.
but we're a chief executive officer.
oh,
Okay,
let me ask a question. What does that mean, chief executive officer?
It's not a defined term, so,
It's never defined anywhere. I read through this thing like 3 or 4 times. They had never really, looked at it with a fine tooth comb. And I was like, well, what does the chief executive officer do? As a board, we are not involved in operations. A chief executive officer typically in an organization, while they may not have direct operational duties, they do have oversight. Does that make sense? So I was a little confused by what a chief executive officer means here.
So do you think maybe we can just say, just take that out and just say that
Yeah.
shall preside at all meetings and then recite all the other things that they do?
Yeah. What does anyone else think? Terry? Chris?
I think that's a very good suggestion, because who is the chief executive?
Sounds good. The simpler you can make it, the better.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Guys, what if you take the whole thing out and the last statement, the chairman shall perform other duties applicable to the office as prescribed by Robert's rules? And I think that's all we need.
Well, I think you want to have the presided meetings and prepare the agenda and make committee appointments. And then the last sentence. So we would just take out and shall perform all duties of the chief executive officer.
Yeah, just take that whole clause out.
Okay.
Yeah,
right, so I have the chairman shall preside at all meetings of the board, prepare. Okay, then, all right, period. And then continue, the prepareman shall, in consultation with the library director, a written agenda for each board meeting, and then keep everything the same.
yeah.
Okay,
Can I muddy the waters here for 1 second?
No.
Sorry. But no, I mean, it's just a point. As I read through this, our tradition has been that the chairman is at every one of the different committee meetings.
Mhm.
I don't see that prescribed anywhere here.
I think it talks about the chair being ex officio of all committees.
Further down, but shouldn't that really be here?
Can't
Because
hurt.
that is, if that's what the chairman is expected to do,
Mhm.
and just because you're an ex officio does not mean you have to be at every meeting. I don't think, does it?
You can always appoint someone, right?
Well, I guess, I just don't know why it's a requirement is I guess my question.
I read that to just mean they're welcome at every meeting.
And that's always that's exactly the way, well, that's my inference, is that they're welcome, but it is not a requirement for the chairman to be at every one of these meetings, because it can get to be quite challenging.
Well, then I would think that's why it's not in duties of the chairman, because they're not required to. I mean, that's how I would read it.
I guess my point is, Megan, I'm bringing up that traditionally we've done it, that the chairman has to be at the meetings. And my point is that the chairman does not have to be at all those meetings. They can be there as ex officio, but I think we need to look at what the expectation is in the duties of the chairman. And if that is not a requirement, then we need to rethink that obligation that we have always placed on the chair.
I don't think just because we've done it means that we have to say specifically they don't have to. I mean, if it doesn't say they have to, then they don't have to.
Yeah, and Tia, over the years, there's been chairmen that have not attended a lot of the meetings.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
you always did because you were conscientious, but previous to you, I mean,
Okay. Okay,
chairmen
that's,
weren't always at meetings.
okay. It was
I agree
explained,
with Megan. I think it's more a formality so that the
Okay.
chairman is a part of what's going on.
that's fine. I mean, it was just that what it was explained to me when I became chair that I was expected to be at every single meeting. So I just think that can be onerous, so I want to be careful. My point being, if that is the expectation and the requirement, it should be in the duties of chairman. If it's not, then we need to make it clear to whoever becomes chair that they don't have to attend all those meetings.
Now you tell me, huh?
Well, but you know, the more I thought about some of these things, the more that became, these little things.
You were misled.
No, you
I
got it.
was
I need a lawyer, Robin.
I was it was misrepresented, but,
Mm. But I
okay.
think because it's not in writing, that we can just, interpretation it's up to the chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, but that was why I brought it up.
Mhm. Good.
Then in section 10,
Mhm.
where we're talking about the vice chair serving as the chairman of the policy committee, do we want to add that they're also the chair of the personnel committee?
Well, we do not, Connie is chair of our personnel, but she is not chair of our policy. So I think we should say either or.
So as chair of the policy or personnel committee?
Right.
Okay.
Or not, or take it out completely. I mean, you might have someone on your board that would be better qualified to serve,
On which committee?
personnel or policy.
Oh, one or the other is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
I
Well,
thought one or
or
the
neither.
other is good because they're both significant committees that tend to have to do a lot of work. And it's good practice for becoming the chair,
I agree.
on the ins and the outs of one of those committees. I don't necessarily think it has to be policy, especially if their area is more personnel, but those are the two key committees.
So you think we should leave it in, Megan?
I think it should be policy or personnel, because if you're going to go from vice chair to chair, you certainly need to know one of those well.
Well, you certainly need to know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I didn't have anything until we get into meetings. I think this has been discussed, that question about if you're absent without notice for a certain number of meetings, then perhaps you should be penalized, or, replaced. And I think the discussion had been if you miss 4 regular meetings. I'm not sure how far this discussion went, but this is something that I think Megan has maybe seen in other bylaws.
Looking at other bylaws throughout the area, there's always a clause about attendance, so that way you don't have somebody who becomes a board member and never shows up for meetings. And you, of course, you don't make it required, you make it at the decision of the board, because there are extenuating circumstances. Could you kind of outline what it is? Or I don't have it in front of me.
Maybe we could say, and this is sample language, I think, from other bylaws. Whenever a meeting of the board is member of the board is absent without notice or excuse at 4 regular meetings out of 12 per year, the board, acting through its chairman or secretary, may contact the Board of Selectmen to request that member be replaced by a new appointee. I don't know. I'd be interested to see whether the charter has removal provisions.
Let's see.
I believe that they don't, Robin, because this has been a bone of contention on a lot of boards in town and a lot of commissions.
Uh-huh.
And
They
I think
don't.
that there's something that they can't remove them. Do you remember, or do you know?
Yeah. I even talked to Matt about this, about removal, and he was like, well, you could make a recommendation to us, but we really don't remove people. We don't, and there's nothing in the charter about removal. And I think that's what Marty Lawler had told us a couple of years ago when we were looking at this, when we had the issue with our one board member who was, absent for such a long time.
We don't have the authority, or they don't have the authority to replace, then at least maybe the chair could contact the board member to ask that they resign. I mean,
yes, I think that makes a lot of sense, and inform the selectmen as to what is going on, because sometimes there are people who the selectmen have a relationship with as well.
do we have to say this, or is that something that
You want it in your bylaws if you're going to say something to a board member.
Yeah.
If that's not written down, you can't.
Also, it also
board
kind of gives guidelines to people who come on the board, to show what the expectation is. So we would say, may, acting through its chairman or secretary, may contact that member to request that they resign.
So may contact.
What did it say there?
Contact that member to request that they resign.
Maybe we could see what some of the other libraries do.
Okay.
And
This is Article 3, which section? Oh, right, it would just be new to Article 3.
Yeah.
and if somebody knows that they're going to be absent for a significant amount of time, perhaps there's some way that they can. Well, it'd be interesting to see what other language is, because, I don't know if somebody could be temporarily put into their stead while that person takes a leave of absence. Is there some, I looked through the charter for any kind of leave of absence language. I did not find any.
Yeah.
No, you just need something that keeps you from having 2 years without a board member.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, is you don't want to have somebody who disappears for a year at a time and you have no communication with. So
Right.
even if it's no communication with a board member, that means they've given up their right. But you need something to cover that.
Yeah, I agree.
The next thing I had was under committees, which is Article 4.
Robin,
Yep.
excuse me, could I just ask us to go back, because I had two questions previous to this? What was it? Section 11, under Article 2, duties of secretary. I think we should take out the recording secretary part. Because we're not using a recording secretary.
But when we go back live, we will again, won't we?
You mean our own secretary can't take the minutes?
How about if we say that of the recording secretary, if any,
There you go.
because we can then make a decision. And then there is a section about the duties of the recording secretary under meetings.
Right.
So
Okay, you know what? I think I read it wrong. I apologize. I think I was thinking of a paid recording secretary.
I think that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah, if you look at our section 7, it says a paid recording secretary who's not a member of the board shall be appointed by the chairman and take minutes and keep a record.
Mhm. So does
Maybe
that
we
mean we
say-
have to have one?
Maybe we can say this is in 7, a paid recording
I see that,
secretary
yeah.
may be appointed by the chairman.
Instead of shall be.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, great.
'Cause it is budgeted for in our annual budget.
It is, but if I need, I mean, keep in
I
mind, the budgets get cut. There's no guarantee it's gonna stay there.
I understand, but my point being that if we do have a paid recording secretary, it is there, and if we need to eliminate it, we can do that, but it's there as a paid thing, whether or not we use it.
So if we change it to May, that would cover our tail. That
Correct.
would be good.
right. And then in section 11, after recording secretary, we'll just say if any.
Great, okay. And before we leave regular meetings,
Mhm.
and I'm just throwing it out there, do we want to stay with 12 meetings? Would we consider taking 1 month off in the summer like many boards? Because sometimes we really struggle for a quorum.
That's good. And then we could always have a special meeting if something came up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the board feels about it, but I think
It's a good idea.
the summer is always a problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we have it because we've scheduled it and have to have it.
So which month do you think is a better one
Well,
to?
either July or August, whatever I mean, I'm thinking July because schools sometimes start back in August, so most people go away in July, but
Mhm.
I mean, August also was a very down time. Megan, do you have a feel on that?
I can look back and see which month had more cancellations and meetings.
I mean, how do you feel about canceling the meeting?
I'm fine with one in the summer. The other alternative is the December meeting, which we need the December meeting because of the nominating committee.
Yeah, plus it's
Um,
budget time. Yeah,
But
Plus, maybe we'll be able to go out to eat again together.
you're right. That's important.
I mean, for me, either one is fine. But I can look and see which one more often than not gets canceled.
Mhm. Okay.
Good idea, Mary. I like that. Anybody have anything else before committees? I think we had discussed this at a prior board meeting, eliminating facility planning and technology committees as
Right.
standing committees.
Mhm.
That would make 6 standing committees if we take those out.
Would you leave them as ad hoc, so as needed, we could bring them back, should there be an issue or something?
Well, would that come under special committees then?
Yes,
Which is the next section.
right.
Says that they can be created by the board chairman. So I think if we could take them out there and then with the understanding that they could always be a special committee.
Mhm.
Then in paragraph, section 3, I want to make sure I'm understanding this the way it's written. It says that each standing committee consists of at least 3 members, including a committee chair who shall be appointed by the board. But we already say that the chair of finance is the treasurer, right?
Yes,
And that policy and who decides whether the vice chair is going to be chair of policy or personnel?
I guess the chair, because she appoints them. He
Okay.
or she appoints them.
So it would be except for the chair of finance, which is the treasurer, then the chair appoints the committee chair.
Correct.
And then we'll take out 6 and 8 and 11, which are facility planning and technology.
Yes, yes.
And then renumber.
Mhm.
That's all I had.
Do we need to change the number of committees that members sit on if we have fewer committees, or is it okay to leave it 3?
I think we need to take that out.
Where is that, Megan?
Section 3, committee appointments and members. Each standing committee shall consist of at least 3 members. And then, is there a section on each board member needs to do a certain number of committees?
Yeah, it's somewhere that I think section 3 reads okay, but what you're talking about is people shouldn't have to sit on 3 committees.
Well,
Is there a provision that requires that all board members be on 3 committees?
I think it's somewhere and I can't find it now.
I thought there was, but Tia, do you remember there being one?
I thought there was too. I'm trying to scroll through everything here.
Okay.
I didn't see that.
One thing we do want to be careful of though, guys, do think about this. You want to make sure that everybody carries some load on the board because
Yeah.
you don't want the same people to be on every committee or have people who aren't serving.
So should it be instead that every board member must sit on 1 or 2 committees?
Well, how many committees are we going to have now? I'm sorry.
Six.
So we have 6 now. So to get a minimum of 3 on each committee.
So that's everybody on 2 committees, right?
Yeah.
So it should really go under Article 1, shouldn't it? Where it's duties.
I mean,
The requirement to serve on at least 2 committees.
That would be the right place for it.
okay, so we need to add to Article 1. Committee assignments. Robin, I'm just gonna plug this stuff in and send it to you to clean up the language on.
Okay.
Committee assignments. So each board member will sit on 2 committees.
Or shall be a member of at least 2 committees.
Yeah, that sounds much better.
Okay,
Because maybe they might want to be on 3, right?
Okay.
Wishful thinking.
Each standing committee, section 3, have at least 3 members, including the committee chair.
Okay.
Anybody else see anything that we need to address? All right, so between now and the next meeting, Megan, you'll check on,
Yep, I have 2 things I'm gonna look, or 3 things I'm gonna look into. I'm gonna look up how other libraries handle their nominations and filling vacancies in the middle of terms. I will be looking up. My handwriting's sloppy. Language for absences of board members, and then just looking up to see which meetings in the summer are typically canceled the most.
just double check the charter references in the beginning.
Oh, yep, I have that.
Can I just bring up one thing before we leave? Section 12 under committees, under article, is that 4?
So Article 4 committees, then Development Committee.
Yeah, Development Committee, section 12. You know, if you read this, this is not what we do in development.
Well, that's a problem.
Pardon me?
I said, that's a problem. We should probably.
Well, it is. Yeah, it is. And it's something we've talked about on and off, because it says the Development Committee shall oversee the community outreach activities of the Library Board of Directors. I don't know that that's what we do, but it should be
don't do that.
responsible for establishing an annual advocacy plan to create and sustain awareness of the library, its programs and its needs. That's not really what it does. It shall develop and implement plans for annual and longer term philanthropic support of the library, which is definitely not what we do. Aid the library director in researching, selecting, and applying for grants for capital programs, general assistance, in the library mission. Chair of Development Committee shall be a member of the board. No, okay, none. But that's not really what we have our Development Committee do. So we need to think about that.
Do you have an idea of how to describe what the committee does other than really fundraising for the library? Is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing of it is, we should have some sort of annual and longer term philanthropic support. I mean, fundraising does somewhat fall under that, but what we've really narrowed it down to is an annual fundraiser, as opposed to any longer term, you know, trying to solicit people to, for example, leave you know, parts of their IRA or stock to us, or other kinds of things. If that's not what we want them to do, that's fine, but we should take that out. And then this whole thing about aiding the library director in applying for grants, I would be interested in hearing from the library director as to what the thought is about that, because, you know, Lynn.
From what I've seen in the last couple of years, the Friends have been the one helping with grants,
Right,
not the board.
right.
Well, it used to be when the development committee, like a long, long time ago, and I've been on it for like ever. That's when we were, you know, building the library. And so we really were trying to get grants. And now it seems that we're just mostly like our fundraising event.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there's also some room for any kind of philanthropic, you know, people leaving monies for us. It might solve some of our issues when we have people who pass, and how we can set up, you know.
Create a legacy kind of thing for the library.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Robin, fill in the blanks for
Very
me.
good, Robin.
But maybe we can look, maybe Megan, in your research or your folks' research into what other development committees do or in that philanthropic outreach, maybe we can look at that and think about that.
Right,
But
we
you're right,
just,
I mean, the Friends really have been the ones assisting with the grants for a number of reasons, not.
well,
not
they've been
one.
assisting because we couldn't, a good number of them we can't apply for as a municipality, but the Friends can apply. And
Exactly.
that's why they really spearheaded it. The other thing we want to be careful though is just we don't want to be following association libraries for
Correct.
development. So
Correct.
I just, a lot of association, this language feels like it came from an association library.
It feels that way to me as well. And I think Terry's right. Its legacy goes all the way back to when we were, building out the library. I think that's where that came from. So I think that's one that we really need to look at, some language there.
Yeah, okay. So I've got my work cut out for me in the next 2 weeks.
You started this, Megan.
No, the board started this.
So when is our
Oh,
next
but it's going to be
meeting?
so good when it's finished.
Except my understanding is this is the easiest thing we're going to be doing.
Yes, this is. At the next meeting, if we can get the bylaws finished, I will be sharing the personnel policy with you because that will take 3 meetings.
Oh, how much is that
So it'll
gonna
be some fun reading. You'll be getting the union contract and the personnel policy.
Okay, when is the next meeting?
Oh, I think
April.
it's 2 weeks.
April 8th.
Okay, perfect.
Let me make sure that's on my calendar.
Should be the same time, Mary.
6:30.
I believe it's April 8th, isn't it?
Yeah, I sent out the date for a Sunday by mistake. So I had to fix it. Let me just find it.
So it's 2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, because I don't have anything on my calendar.
Yeah, I better put it on too.
So is everyone still available for April 8th at 6:30?
Yes.
Yes.
I am.
Okay. So April 8th at 6:30 PM.
Okay.
Okay.
Same place.
Always the same place. 4, 8, 6:30. Okay. Great.
Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will.
I'll second it.
That, Megan? Are you
Yep.
taking, okay, you're taking minutes. I just occurred to me.
What I will do is I will email them to you, Robin. You have to approve them, then I can submit them.
Okay. All right, all in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Have a good evening.
Great.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
And then share.
Good night.
Good night.
Everybody. Just trying to make sure I end the recording and don't lose it. Word.